Welcome back to another show. Yes, we are all wearing Capitals jerseys. Why? Because Alex Ovechkin on Sunday broke Wayne Gretzky's all-time NHL goal-scoring record by scoring his 895th goal, career goal. Now, before we go any further, I want to play a quick clip for you. So Joe says he breaks it this year. I say he breaks it this year. Mike, you were long-winded and I don't know what the hell you were talking
about. Which is it, Mike? Is he going to do it or not?
I was non-committal.
Oh, non-committal. Okay, well, way to ride that fence. So, Mike, now that you've seen that, do you want to readdress your prediction on whether or not Ovi will break the record this season and whether my mathematical mind that you questioned or called into question is accurate, or do you want to just say, shut up and we move on?
Yeah, shut up. Let's move on.
So anyway, obviously I was watching. He scored. I cried. I fully admit that. I cried. I was so happy for him. I was so happy for the team. I was happy the way that for all the stuff that NHL does wrong, I think sometimes they do stuff like this really, really well. And I thought the presentation afterwards was great with Gretzky being there. I don't know. I'm assuming you guys were watching, yes?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So thoughts, Mike. You go first. What'd you think?
I mean, it was, look, we knew it was going to happen. It was inevitable. It was, yes. When we talked about this before, I tried to play both sides of it, whether he'd get it done this year. I will point out, if you go back, I did say that when he tends to get close to a record, he'll get a little streaky. And what do you have? 5 goals in 4 games, something like that.
7 goals in 6 games, I think, is
what... at the end. Yeah. So, yeah. So it was. I really didn't think he was going to do it on Sunday. I would have been fine with him doing it tomorrow at home against Carolina for a lot of reasons.
Yes.
But I think, to your point, the way the NHL handled it was really great. And there were a lot of Caps jerseys there. There was a lot of support for him. So yeah, it would have been better at home, but I don't feel like it took much away from it not being at home. So look, I was thrilled.
Joe?
It was awesome. It was so awesome. I think one of the things I really liked the day before, 2 days before, when he got the 2 goals and tied the record.
Yeah.
It was awesome. It was so fantastic the way the build up, and then Gretzky was there at that one. They did interviews. They did a couple minutes stoppage of play. He did his laps, all the interviews afterwards, and that was getting me emotional. But before, when he tied the record, and then Sunday accomplishing it, it was just the icing on the cake. It was, and I think I agree with Mike in the sense that it would have been cool to have it done at home, but because the home crowd got the tying one, which I mean, it was almost as good. And it was funny because on Sunday when he actually did it, I didn't know the NHL was doing a whole ceremony, stopping everything, bringing out the carpets, bringing everyone out, and it was great, and it was really cool to see how just everyone is happy for him, and every newscaster and every people that never talk about hockey, they're like, this unbelievable record was finally broken, or it was incredible. It was just
I think one of the big things for me was, I don't know about you guys, but as a Caps fan, probably for the last 5 years or so, I've said Ovi was the greatest goal scorer in NHL history, regardless of whether or not he was to break the record or not, just because of playing in different times than what Gretzky played in. And what really solidifies it now is, he tied Gretzky in the same number of games that Gretzky had. So, you compare it, goals per game average. Well, that's the same. If you're doing it in the same number of games, there's no dispute. This isn't Roger Maris hitting 61 homers in 161 games as opposed to Babe Ruth doing it in 154 or whatever. You know, it's nothing like that. It's you're almost, I mean, outside of the different eras of hockey, you are literally comparing apples to apples. And I think that, to me, that really solidifies any question that people might have. So I thought that was great when he scored the 2 goals on Friday. I predicted before that game that he would score a hat trick and that no one would be able to watch because the game was on NHL Network. You know, so but
and interestingly, he had the opportunity. I mean, he could have gone back on for a potential empty netter, and
right.
he didn't want it, which says a lot about him.
Yes.
But you're right. That was another thing. Big thing around the DC area was the number of national games leading up to the end of the season, and would Joe be able to make the call?
Yeah.
So for me, it was pretty exciting that it was a Joe B called game, because I got to hear, and I know they were going to do a whole, like, they would do the game and it'd be released 24 hours later, blah, blah, blah. But it was, look, having Joby and Locker on the call for the game was awesome.
Well, for you, I was watching, but that's the thing is, for me, I wasn't watching Monumental Sports Network. I was watching, I had to watch TNT.
Yeah, me too.
And so I synced up John Walton's radio call. And I did that on Friday as well. And, you know, John Walton, I remember when he started calling games for the Caps, I was like, who is this guy? Bring me back Weber. But I tell you, John Walton is incredible. And listening to him, it gave me chills. And so I was glad I got the opportunity to do that. I did eventually hear the Joe B and Locker call, though, as Locker said in an interview afterwards, he didn't even say anything. I didn't realize that at the time, but he didn't even say anything. It was just Joe B, because Locker was so engrossed in the moment. And I'm glad he was back. He recovered from his heart surgery, so he could be there at the game and call it. I thought that was big. But yeah, just a huge milestone. And you're right, Joe, it's big for people who aren't even sports involved or sports fans. Of course, there were some people who had to point out that Ovechkin is apparently best friends with Putin, you know, but it's like, come on, it's sports, you know, let's keep it at sports. And so just real happy. Was it Ovechkin's first game when he scored against Columbus all those years ago? I would have loved to have been at one of these games to see him tie it or break the record, but just wonderful for Washington fans, for Caps fans, for NHL, and yeah, for all sports fans who get into these things. So really great.
Here's my real quick to close it out.
Yeah,
we obviously, last time we talked about it was will he do it this season or not? Well, he did it with 5 games left. So how many goals do we think he's actually going to finish the year with? We've got 5 more games. How many more do you guys think he's going to score?
2. I think he's going to score 2 more. But I also think this happening right now is the best time, because the chase is over. Right. We can focus on the playoffs. There's none of this like, oh, is he going to do it? When's he going to do it? Oh, and if he didn't get it done, then it's like this carries on to the next year, and there's going to be all this pressure on. And it's like this worked out so perfectly that we can go to the playoffs. We don't need to worry about it. It's done. Time to move on. And did you see today? They had a practice, and they had 895 kids in at the practice witnessing it. It was cheering them on, which was pretty cool. But to answer your question, I think he's going to get 2 more goals before the playoffs start. So
I'm going to go with 2 as well. I'm going to go off Mike, what you were saying, how he ramps up when he's chasing a record. I think he's going to have the opposite effect now that he's got it. Not that he's going to take a break or anything like that, but I think it'll tail off. And I would say 2. The Caps did clinch the division last night when Carolina lost. So that's one less thing they have to worry about. But also they're close to being 3rd overall in the league in points. I think Dallas is right behind Winnipeg. So that's something to consider as well. There's still a lot to play for the Caps, even though they won the division. So yeah, on to the playoffs. But yeah, 5 games, 2 goals at most.
All right, I'm with you guys too.
Okay. All right. So now back to football, and we're not going to change jerseys or anything like that. One, because I didn't bring any other jersey, and two, none of you need to see us change. So what we're going to address today is something that came up in the owners' meetings that they tabled until the next meeting in May, and that is the possible reseeding of the playoffs. Currently, right now, 4 division winners are the top 4 seeds. Then the 3 wild cards are seated behind them. So division winners all get home playoff games regardless of their record. The Detroit Lions have offered up a scenario to change that, whereas if you win your division, you automatically qualify for the playoffs. That does not change. There'll still be 3 wild cards, but then the playoff seeding will be done solely based on record, as opposed to the division winners being seated at the top 4 spots. So your initial thoughts about hearing that, not other potential scenarios, but your initial thought about possibly changing the seeding of the playoffs. Joe, we'll go to you first on this one.
I knew you were going to come to me first.
Well, we can go to Mike first if you want to collect your thoughts.
Yeah. Let's see if Mike has any ideas right now. Give me a minute.
Mike, what you got?
Yeah.
Come on, I'll go first. I don't care.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about. On the face of it, I understand why, the proposal is out there to do to do that, because we've seen, and we'll talk more about it, but teams that, with a better record but in a strong division end up in a wild card spot, so they don't get a home playoff game, things like that. So I get it. I understand why Detroit proposed it. It would have affected them this year. I think my question is,
well, it wouldn't have affected Detroit this year.
It would have for the second round. Remember, it would have for the second round with the reseeding.
Well, no, because the Lions were the number 1 seed overall, so they had home field throughout the entire playoffs.
It would have affected their opponent.
Yeah, potentially.
It would have.
Yeah, I mean, are they bringing that? Were they bringing it up like?
Yeah, I guess
on behalf of the Vikings, like
no,
to help them out.
No, I think it's because they faced the Commanders in the second round, who knocked them out. Whereas had it reseeded, they would have faced, I don't remember who now.
Well, so we'll dive into it. So I have it here in front of us, so we don't get confused. So the playoff seedings as they were, you had the Lions seeded first, Eagles second, and of course we're focusing only on the NFC for this last season because
we don't care about the AFC.
Right. So number 1 seed was the Lions. Number 2 seed Eagles. 3 was the Buccaneers. 4 was the Rams. So those are your 4 division winners. And then the Vikings, Washington, and Green Bay were your 5, 6, and 7 seeds as wild cards. And so what you ended up with is the Lions got a bye, the Eagles hosted the Packers, the Buccaneers hosted Washington, and the Rams hosted the Vikings. The big thing with that is that the Rams were 10-7, the Vikings were 14-3, and the Buccaneers were 10-7 as well, and Washington was 12-5. So you had two wild card teams that had better records than division winners, and they had to go on the road. If it was changed to what Detroit is proposing, the seedings would have been Lions were number 1, Eagles number 2, Vikings 3, Washington 4, Green Bay 5, Tampa Bay 6, and the Rams 7. So you would have had the Lions still would have had a bye, but you would have had the Eagles hosting the Rams, the Vikings hosting Tampa Bay, and Washington hosting Green Bay. And so the first those 3 games, 2 of those first 3 games would have been completely different with 2 different teams hosting. The Eagles still would have hosted. They would have just hosted a different team. Instead of hosting the 11-6 Packers, they would have hosted the 10-7 Rams. So the Rams, with the worst playoff record, the worst record of playoff teams, actually got to host a playoff game. And I think that's the issue. That's one of the issues, I guess.
I think it's one, but I think because it's coming from Detroit, had they reseeded, wouldn't they have well, they do reseed, but they would have faced the 10-7 Rams instead of the 12-5 Commanders, right? I feel like that's why Detroit brought this forward.
But I mean,
Reseeded based on what happened this year.
Yeah.
Like the Eagles, so when you look at the playoff results from this year, the Eagles beat the Packers, right? Washington beat Tampa Bay, and the Rams beat the Vikings, right?
Right.
yeah.
Okay. And so that meant the lowest seed remaining went to Detroit, and that was Washington.
But they were the lowest seed remaining, not based on record, based on being a wild card team.
Right. Well,
That's
I
what I'm
mean,
saying.
yeah, they were the lowest remaining seed because that's what their seeds were. We haven't changed anything, so that's what they were. They were seeded 6th. They were the lowest
Correct.
remaining
So
seed.
what I'm saying is the reason Detroit brought, I believe, is bringing this up is had they seeded based on records, that would have put the Rams in a lower seed, would have been the lowest seed of those 4 remaining teams for the second round, for the divisional round. They would have faced the Rams, not the Commanders.
Well, we don't know who they would have faced because we would have had
But
3 different games than what we had.
true. It's true.
Because the Rams could have beaten the Eagles in the first round. I mean, I know the Eagles went on to
Wouldn't that have been
Super Bowl,
sweet?
Right.
but they could have won. And if you have Washington hosting Green Bay, why couldn't Green Bay have won? Why couldn't Tampa Bay have beaten Minnesota?
Yeah, okay, you're right. I guess what I'm saying is we keep talking about the first round divisional, division winners getting a home game. I'm not sure that's what Detroit's motivation was. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I don't know what their motivation was either. I don't think they were trying to do anything for the Vikings. If anything, my initial thought was with Detroit bringing it was Detroit knows that they were 1 game away from being Minnesota. If Minnesota had beat Detroit in the last game of the season, Minnesota would have won their division. They would have been the number 1 seed overall, and Detroit would have been the first wild card and would have had to go on the road to play as the season played out and the seedings were. They would have gone on the road to play the Rams. So I think they want to make sure that, if they're assuming that, hey, we're Detroit, we got a good team now, we're on a roll, we were the number 1 seed, we could very easily have been not won our division. We want to protect ourselves moving forward by making sure if we come in second to the Vikings by a game, we could still possibly host the playoff game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we're trying to guess their motive, right?
We are.
Yeah.
Which,
So go ahead.
But it's funny if you think about it, though. If you look at last year and the way the teams played, and it's a big what if, what if? Yeah. But it's like, honestly, the way we beat the crap out of the Lions and the way the Rams took out the Vikings, like, it wouldn't have mattered. I think either one of those teams would have taken out the Lions. It just, I don't know. It seems like a silly thing to worry about. I don't know that it's going to change all that much, and it's a rare occasion that we need to focus on it.
right.
Right.
So do you change a rule based on a scenario that happens fairly infrequently, or where it becomes relevant, I guess, infrequently?
And that's the thing. If you change a rule that doesn't affect something, or is on a very infrequent basis, is that the type of rule that you want to change because it won't have that dramatic effect on things, big picture? It just happens every once in a while. It's not like you're suddenly changing the definition of pass interference or holding that would affect every single play almost.
Right.
You're changing a playoff seeding that may happen, I don't know, once every couple of years, maybe. None of us did a deep dive to see how many times this has happened in recent times, but so I don't think it's I understand why they're looking at it. And I can understand why a team, forget the fact that it's Detroit, I can understand why a team would suggest this. I'm not for it overall. I'm not for changing the playoff seeding. But I'm curious because apparently there's some other options on the table other than just saying we're going to completely reseed it. And this is, this is from a CBS Sports article, and I don't know if these are actual scenarios that the owners are considering, or if it's just something that CBS, along with 700 other million people who have thought about this, have talked about. They say an option 2 is a modified version of the Lions proposal, and that is if a division winner has a losing record, they do not get to host a home playoff game. Like they'll still make the playoffs, but they wouldn't get to host the game. And so there's been a couple times where this has happened. The last time it happened, according to this article, was 2022 when the Buccaneers went 8-9 and won their division. We know it's happened to Washington when they won, what was it, 7-8-1. They won a division. What was that, 2020, I think it was. So there's 2 times in the last 5 years that it's happened, that's happened. And it's just, okay, so over the past 25 years, this rule would have only been used 4 times. 2010, when the Seahawks won their division at 7-9. 2014, the Panthers won their division at 7-8-1. That's where I was thinking 7-8-1. In 2020, Washington won with a record of 7-9, and then the Buccaneers in 2022. So 4 times in the last 25 years, but twice in the last 5. So, maybe is this starting to happen more often? So I kind of like that idea of, if you don't even have a winning record, okay, you can still come to the playoffs, sure, but we're going to penalize you, so you're not going to get to host a game.
If you don't have a winning record coming into the playoffs, you're the 4th seed, right?
Right now, if you win your division and you have a losing record, you would
most likely
be the 4th seed. Yes, you wouldn't be seeded any lower than 4, and
so
more importantly, you would host the game.
In the 4 times that it happened in the last the 20 years, you said, what did those teams do?
Well, that's a good question.
I know we lost ours, and so we're losing to the 5th ranked team coming in, which probably has a better record than us because they're a wild card.
I think that was Tampa Bay.
It was Tampa Bay. It was Tampa Bay when they went on to win the Super Bowl.
Oh, there you go. And
they took out poor Taylor Heineke.
So Seattle in 2010, Seattle won they won their first round game. They beat New Orleans, who was the 5 seed, and then lost to Chicago, who was the number 2 seed.
Huh.
So that was.
I just would have assumed if they're going in with a losing record like that, they would have been knocked out in the first round. But I guess what I was thinking is, like, it kind of comes down to, I feel like the playoffs are going to work themselves out. The teams that aren't doing great, they don't have a great record, they're going to be knocked out. And the proper team is going to win.
So in 2014, it was the Panthers who went 7-8-1. And oh, I'm looking at the wrong thing.
Well, while you're looking that up, I get what you're saying, Joe. But I'm also like, if you have a losing record as a divisional winner, you had a really bad division, you don't deserve a home playoff game.
I kind of agree with that.
I kind of like this compromise to the Detroit proposal.
So the proposal is, if you only have a losing record when you come into the playoffs, you're then basically thrown into the wild card shuffle.
I guess.
Is that what it would
Yes,
be? Like
yeah.
whatever your record is compared to the other 3 wild cards?
Mm.
Well, it doesn't say that. So that was going to be my next question is, do you automatically become the highest seeded wild card team, or are you considered a wild card team at that time? And like if there's 3 wild card teams, and let's say those wild card teams are all 10-7, just to make things easy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and your winning division team is 8-9, right? So it's a losing record. Does the 8-9 team suddenly become the 7th seed overall? And whoever has the best record of the 3 wild card teams then gets the number 4 seed and gets to host a game with that.
Yeah, it's a good question.
So here we go. So the 4 times they said it happened. The first 2 times it was who was it? Seattle won their game. They beat New Orleans. So that was 2010. In 2014, it was Carolina. They won their first playoff game. And then in 2022, it was Tampa Bay, and they lost their first game. And we know Washington lost theirs. So the 4 times in the last 25 years it's happened, it's 50-50 on whether or not that team wins. And to your point, Joe, you say a team is playing, they could have a losing record. Like, remember Washington, they finished 7-9, but didn't they go on like a 5-game win streak or something like that at the end of that season, or a 6-game? Like, they were on a win streak to do that, if I remember correctly. Maybe I'm thinking of a different season. Oh no, I'm thinking of 2012.
Yeah, I think that's a different season because we had so many quarterback troubles, and then Heineke came in.
That's
and
right.
Shocked everyone with like being at least decent, you know.
Yeah.
So I guess, but if they did it this way, if you're coming into the playoffs and we're doing the reseeding where you're the losing record coming in, there's a solid chance you're going to be in the 7th seed.
So, right. But I don't think that's what they're saying. And here's why I say that. I'm looking at the CBS article on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
They say if this rule had been blah, 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 last time it would have been utilized was 2022 when the 8-9 Buccaneers won the NFC South, which earned them the right to host the 12-5 Cowboys in the wild card round. If this rule had been in place, the Cowboys would have gotten to host the game since Tampa Bay finished the season with a losing record. So it sounds like what all they're really doing is
switching the home game.
Who has home field.
Okay. And that would make sense.
Don't change.
Well, that makes sense because the Cowboys, that means the Cowboys would have been the highest seeded wild card team.
Yep.
So they would have, in essence, they're bumping up to the 4 seed.
Presumably what the assumption is, your losing record division winner is the 4th seed. Then, of course, your 5th seed is the highest record wild card. So same matchup, you just flip who has home field advantage.
Okay. So
if that's the proposal, I'm all for that. But does the home field advantage really make that much of a difference?
I don't know.
I don't either.
Ask Detroit.
You get them.
I don't know, but I'll take it one step further. Quite honestly, I don't think you should be in the playoffs if you have a losing record. I don't buy that. I realize that's a stretch and that's not going to happen, but I just think using those four scenarios, you should not, unless it then goes to wild card seedings. You should not make the playoffs. So, like the instance where Tampa Bay played Dallas, right? Is that what we said? Dallas.
Yeah.
The Dallas becomes the number 4 seed, and then it's the next best 3 records are in the playoffs. And if your losing record puts you in those next best 3 records, great, then you can be in the playoffs. But that's seeded. It's not, you're not automatically the 5th seed. You might end up being the 6th seed or the 7th seed. But if you can't finish with a 500 record, I don't think you should be rewarded for being in the playoffs. It's kind of like, it's a little like college football where they say you need 6 wins to qualify for a bowl game, because in theory that when they set that, 6 games would have meant you were 500 or better. They play more games now, so that doesn't really play out as well. But I think you should have to have a winning record, or at least 500. But you can't have 500 now unless you get a tie to make the playoffs. Again, I don't think that's ever going to happen. I don't think that's ever going to be an option. But that's, if you're talking about what we think is the best scenario, I think that's the best scenario in regards to that.
I can't get behind that because
Yeah,
we've been
me
behind. Only because we've been behind that. We would have been eliminated from the playoffs one time then.
Well, but I still, but that's what I'm saying though. You know, we were eliminated right off the bat with that year anyway, right? Didn't we lose in the first round anyway?
We did, but we also lost to the future Super Bowl champs. So
A big deal.
everyone lost to him.
I think personally, I think it should stay the same. I think if you win your division, you should be rewarded for that by getting home field advantage for the first game, and go from there. So I think it should stay the way it is. Although, you know, my only change would be, like I said, is if you have a losing record, you can still win your division. That's great. You can have a little banner that says you won your division, but you don't automatically qualify for the playoffs, and you certainly should not host a playoff game. I don't think if you have, I agree with you all on that point. If you have a losing record, you should not host the first round playoff game. Period. I agree with that.
I can get behind that rule change.
So here's the thing. It looks like, if I'm doing this real time, so it looks like 2022, we just said last time it happened.
Yeah.
So if you say, okay, Tampa Bay with their 8-9 record, they're out. You bring in the next next highest record that ended up being eliminated as a wild card. That's Detroit at 9-8. You're swapping an 8-9 team who won their division for a 9-8 team. I don't know. I mean, look, Rob, you talked about, you're a bit of a divisional, you believe in divisions and things like that. I think the fact that it's a 1-win difference, I think winning your division, I wouldn't like that rule in 2022.
Well, but I think, what is the division title based on? It's based on overall record, right? Your division games mean nothing.
Right.
As far as winning your division, they're not more important than any other game, quite honestly. Because everything is based on overall record. You play 17 games, they all matter the same. And don't tell me, oh, but the Dallas game means more because it's Dallas. That hasn't meant anything for 25 years.
No.
Every game matters the same. So I could even throw out, I could make the argument that your division winner should be based on division record. Now that wouldn't change a whole lot of things, but okay, you want to win your division? Great. If you have a winning record in your division, then okay, maybe I can let that slide. I mean, we'll throw that in as one of the tiebreakers or whatever. Like, I mean, look at all the different tiebreaker scenarios they have that they've had to come up with over the years. Because, yeah, 9-8 is a better record than 8-9. That, you know, I mean, that's the reality of it. So why, you know, you want the best teams, right? Isn't that the idea, is to have the best teams? Yeah, I'm a division guy. You're absolutely right. But if everything's based on overall record, so let's go off overall record then. I'm making an argument against what I would want.
Yeah,
but,
you are.
but because I'm taking it to the extreme. Like, if you want this, then let's really do it. If you think that a division winner should lose home field advantage because they had a sub 500 record, why stop there? Why should they be in the playoffs? Why should they get that? Why should that be rewarded then? You won your division, but Mike, as you said, you had a weak division. If you won it with a sub 500 record, that means everybody in your division was sub 500. And you got to play extra games against that poor division.
Yeah, but if
You're
you're
being
playing against that
rewarded.
poor
You're being
division,
rewarded for playing in a poor division.
but if you're playing in that poor division, your opponent's going to be thrilled that they're playing against someone who doesn't belong there, and that should be an easier game for them.
Yeah, well, great for them, but I don't care about that. I mean,
Well, yeah,
I'm not saying this because I want Washington to benefit from anything. Washington's not going to benefit from this because from here on out they're going to win every division. They're going to the division every year, right? Because we got Dan Quinn and we got Cliff Kingsbury and we got Jaden Daniels. So it's and Adam Peters. So it's division titles from here on out. It won't matter.
not with those damn Eagles.
Yeah.
They got a pretty good thing going on up there.
Crash and burn, Eagles. Crash and burn. Right, Mav? Crash and burn. I think it should stay the same. Like from where it is right now, I think it should stay the same.
I kind of want to, why? Why are we talking about this? Why did this come up? Like, why would you make a big stink about this? Because what they're proposing it doesn't even make sense, really. It's fine the way it is. You win your division, you're in the playoffs, and then now the new proposal of just swapping the home field advantage for the 4-5 game, basically, who cares? This doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. It's like
it could be more than just the 4-5 game. Who's to say that you couldn't have two wild cards have better records than 2 division winners?
That's true. I wasn't thinking about it that.
It's not about better record. It is with the modified proposal. It's have to have a losing record. But you're right. Who's to say you can't have 2 division winners with losing records?
But what's
that would be
the original proposal?
The original is what you're saying. Yes, I'm talking about the modified, this second option that came up.
Okay, but we're in general we're talking about the proposals that were raised. So what the Lions have proposed is it's seeded based on records. Here's the 7 teams that will qualify, and it's based on overall record. I don't like that.
Yeah, no, I agreed. I'm saying that what appears is probably came out of discussions in the owners meeting of a potential compromise to just deal with a division winner who has a sub 500 record. I can get behind that. I can get behind the second option.
Yeah, I don't like that. Like I said, if you're going to go to the second option, the hybrid option, then my philosophy is if you couldn't win your division with a 500 record or better, then you shouldn't be in the playoffs.
Okay, well that's a whole different.
But my thought is if you're going to change it, then let's change it. Let's not just tweak it. Let's change it, because obviously somebody's got their panties in a bunch over this. Maybe it's just Detroit. Maybe there are other teams. Maybe Detroit's the only one that spoke up. I'm surprised the Vikings weren't on board with this. I mean, maybe they are, but I mean, vocally, co-sponsoring or whatever, however they do it when they propose a rule change. Why didn't anybody else jump on board with this?
Did we hear anything about where people were voting on this one? Because we heard the tush push was 16-16, and they were tabling it for a month, and they'll look at it again. Obviously, there's a lot of people that want to get rid of it. There's a lot of people that don't. Where are teams standing on this one? Do we know?
I don't recall reading anything about it.
So I wonder, I'm at this point, it doesn't make sense to do this, because I think you're right, Rob, that if you're going to make any change to, and you're going to start getting into breaking it down, to this nitty gritty, then you need to reevaluate the whole setup. I agree with you, but just leave it alone. It's fine. We don't need to tweak this. It's not broken.
This article changing. That Roger Goodell seemed to be enthusiastic about the Lions proposal.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, his quote is, "I thought it was a very healthy proposal and a very healthy point that we need to evaluate and continue to look at. It went through many different forms. There was some great data to show we should really look at some form or version of this," which is, just a non-answer. But uh,
That's his specialty, isn't
and,
it?
and according to Pro Football Talk, which I don't really care for because they hate Washington. Well, maybe they don't hate Washington anymore. They hated the name Redskins. Goodell was, quote, visibly irritated that more teams weren't on board with the possible change, which would lead me to believe that there's probably less than half the teams that wanted to change it. That's a guess on my part.
Yeah.
But
No, it makes sense though.
so less than 16 teams, because it doesn't affect a lot of teams. So who would be for it? I mean,
Right.
if you were to hold the vote based on last year, who would be for it? Well, Minnesota would have been for it. At least I hope they would have been. Detroit would have been for it. Washington would have been for it. I don't know what the AFC looked like, but maybe there's one or two teams in the AFC that probably would have been for it. Okay, so there's 5-6 teams out of 30. That's really not enough to change a rule. So I think this is something that will be changed. So let me pose this question to y'all then. Since we've harped on these scenarios. I think the rule is going to be changed. Now, what it's going to be changed to, I don't know. But I think it's going to be changed. So I asked the two of you, do you think that there will be a change this year? So when they come out of the meetings in May, that it will be changed. And if you have an opinion as to what you think the final result would be, I'd love to hear that. Not necessarily what you like or what you hope will happen, but what you think might happen. I know we're not in the business of doing predictions here, but it's not like we're predicting Washington's record for 2025 or anything like that. But do you think it will be changed? And if so, what do you think will be the end result? Joe, you don't like going first, so I'll go to Mike.
I was ready this time.
All right, you go first, Joe.
I was just going to say, I don't think it's going to be changed. And I also don't think they need to change it. And I think it just needs to be one of those things that it was thrown out there. They talked about it. They discussed it. Let it go. We don't need to do anything. I don't think it needs to change. I don't think the system is broken to a point that it needs any further attention than it's already gotten.
Okay. Mike?
I think it might be changed, but not this year. So I
Okay.
agree it won't change this year. Just the fact that it sounds like there's not enough owner support, team support. Right now they had to table it. I don't think it's changing this year. It does sound like this may come up again next year. Just my guess, but so maybe next year.
Okay.
What that would look like, I don't know. It could be one of the two proposals we're seeing now, or maybe given more time, there's something else.
Yeah, I mean, yes. There's always we just there's three options that we've kind of laid out right now. One is the status quo. Two is seeding completely based on overall records. Even though you 4 division winners still make it, top best 3 records make it as wild cards, seed according to overall record. Or the third option is what we were calling the hybrid option, where if you win your division with a sub 500 record, you don't get to host a playoff game. You become in essence the number 5 seed, or potentially the number 6 seed if it happened more than once. So yes, there is a fourth option, and that is the yet to be named option. This is where you have your multiple choice question: A, B, C, D, and D is something else. Write in your answer below. And we don't have that answer. I mean, we're still experts, but we don't have the answer, which shows you how tough this subject really is. If the experts can't handle it, it's pretty tough. I mean, so, but yeah, look, Washington would have had a home playoff game last year, and that would have been nice for the people in Washington who could have gone to the game. It doesn't affect me because I'm not going to go to the game, so I don't care. But Washington, it didn't matter to Washington. They went on the road against the best team with the team with the best record. I won't say the best team, the team with the best record in the conference, and they won handily. So did they even need home field advantage? Apparently not. Would it have been a nice reward for the fans and the owner's wallet to have a home playoff game? Sure. But I don't think that's a reason to change things up.
Okay.
All right. Well, any final thoughts on that? Tonight we talked about Ovi breaking Gretzky's record. We talked about the potential reseeding of playoffs. You guys got any final thoughts on either that or something else you want to throw out as we wrap this up? Joe, go.
I do have
thoughts.
I nothing to add to those. I did just want to bring up one other thing that I saw today.
Okay.
About Jonathan Allen saying he felt like he had been cheated. Had you seen this article?
No.
It was kind of a backhanded compliment to Washington. He felt like he was cheated because everything was really great this most recent year, and that the team is looking ahead and doing better, and he was cheated by all the previous years of having the crappy ownership and all the bad things going on. So it was kind of interesting to say that now that he's in Minnesota and he's saying how great the facilities are and everything. It just kind of was funny to see that. And I actually I like it because it sounds like with all the new ownership and everything that's changing over the past year, things are getting better. And if things are getting better, hopefully better players want to come and play.
Well, that's the whole thing. Yeah, I've just pulled up an article from Sports Illustrated about this. That's what he says. I feel like I've been cheated my last 8 years. When asked about his impression of the team facilities on a podcast with Chris Long, that's the only quote they have. The Commanders had a really good culture last year, and that was the hardest part about leaving. When I was going into free agency, I told myself that I wanted to choose a team that had an established culture. Allen feels like he's found that, and he welcomed his former team to face his new one as the Commanders will visit Vikings during the 2025 regular season. So, yeah, I don't.
It was just kind of neat because it was as he's walking out the door, he had nothing but good things to say about the new regime and the things that have changed and the way the team is going forward. And it was like, okay, I'm glad to see that. It's nice to see that, and let's just hope that Harris does right for the team and does right by the players and the fans too, of course, and makes it a quality product that we want to be proud of, that people want to go and spend their money at, and players want to come and play for.
If Allen was that excited to be part of the culture still in the new culture in Washington, he could have redone his contract and stayed for a lesser amount.
Okay, I wasn't going there, but yeah, that's fine.
All right, yeah. All right, Mike, you got anything to end up with?
No, nothing else.
All right. Well, then we'll put a bow on this show and wrap it up. So we'll be back next week with more fun, exciting topics where we talk about things we have no idea what we're talking about because we're experts and that's what we do. So until next week, thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, click the like button, leave a comment or two, whatever you want to do, but please watch because our fragile egos could use it.